When True Detective Season 1 opens, it feels familiar. Two detectives, a gruesome murder, and a quiet rural landscape hiding something monstrous. You think you know the story, a serial killer, a trail of bodies, the cops trying to stop him, but from the very first scene, it's clear that this isn't just another detective show, it's something far deeper. The case begins in 1995, when detectives Rust Cole and Marty Hart are called to a sugarcane field in rural Louisiana. What they find there sets the tone for everything that follows, is grotesque, ritualistic, and deeply unsettling. The Dora Lang scene isn't just exposition, it's a promise. The image of a woman posed like an offering, the spiral symbols, the antlers, and the devotional elements tells us two things immediately. First, this isn't a typical homicide or killer, and second, the world we're entering is sacramental in its horror. The writing resists telling you everything up front. Instead, it gives you an atmosphere and enough mystery to make you want to keep breathing with it. That restraint is crucial. It trains the viewer to peer into textures rather than hunt for plot breadcrumbs alone. The first stroke of brilliance in True Detective's writing is how it builds mystery not through constant twists, but through atmosphere and uncertainty. Each clue, each strange symbol, feels like a doorway into something vast and unknowable. The deeper Rust and Marty dig, the less the case feels like a simple murder, and more like they're scratching at the surface of an ancient, invisible system of evil. Early episodes let us learn the case through Rust and Marty's differences in method. Marty is for interviews, surface-level reconstruction, and the social script of police work, whereas Rust is more for pattern recognition, philosophical rumination, and an almost forensic curiosity about ritual and symbols. The writing uses their methods as investigative devices. When Marty interrogates a person, we learn about community ties, hypocrisy, and how the social fabric hides crimes. When Rust spends the night thinking or drawing maps, we learn patterns of ritual, historical recurrence, and symbolic logic. The case is thereby taught to us twice, once through the practical craft of policing, and the other through pattern thinking and philosophical deduction. The script scatters tiny, uncanny details across episodes, a pawnshop ledger here, a childhood memory there, a chance remark about a ritual. On first viewing, many of these feel atmospheric. On second viewing, they're actually structural. This is brilliant writing because it toys with how human comprehension builds. The case advances by accumulation of smaller details rather than by single, dramatic reveals. When we first meet Rust Cole, he's not just cynical. He's surgical in his critique of other people's illusions. He dismantles the polite small talk, the social rituals, the church-going morality that everyone else hides behind. Sitting in Marty's car, he doesn't just talk about God, he dissects him. He calls religion a language virus that keeps people from facing the truth. He says faith, marriage, and identity are all constructs, masks people wear to avoid staring into the void. Rust doesn't hate people, he pities them. He sees their need for meaning as weakness. When others talk about the good old days or God's plan, Rust sees denial. His contempt isn't personal, it's existential. He believes everyone is lying to each other, to themselves, just to make life bearable. He doesn't say that to shock, he says it because he genuinely believes human beings cannot function without delusion. He's disgusted by the hypocrisy. People who preach morality but commit cruelty, who thank God while ignoring the suffering around them. Rust's worldview rejects the comfort of any narrative, religious, moral, or emotional. To him, existence is accidental, and belief systems are emotional crutches built to hide that truth. In Rust's eyes, existence itself is the original crime. To be alive is to participate in a cycle of suffering that we perpetuate through our illusions. And yet, Rust's nihilism isn't performative, it's earned. He's seen too much, the death of his daughter, years undercover among killers and addicts, a life stripped of illusion. For him, pessimism isn't a mood, it's a moral awakening. The story unfolds across two timelines, the 1995 investigation and the 2012 interrogation, as older versions of Rust and Marty recount their versions of events to new detectives. It makes memory part of the evidence, as the detectives are unreliable narrators. The case isn't only what happened, it is what they remember and how their memories have been reshaped by trauma, ego, and time. This device accomplishes several things. It injects doubt into the official investigation, it forces us to interrogate the motives behind each recollection, and it converts the story from a straightforward whodunit into a study of how justice, guilt, and shame mutate over time. When older Marty and older Russ speak, the case is refracted. Their omissions become evidence of character as much as the physical clues are evidence of crime. That dual timeline also turns the show into a psychological puzzle. It's not just about catching the killer, it's about understanding what happened to these two men over the course of 17 years. Why are they no longer partners? Why does Russ look like a ghost of his former self? The case becomes inseparable from the detectives themselves. The concept of time in True Detective is central to its philosophy. Rust's flat circle monologue isn't just poetic fatalism, it's metaphysical despair. This isn't just mere hopelessness, it's a worldview drawn from Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, filtered through Rust's damaged psyche. It implies that all suffering, all violence, all evil repeats endlessly, that history doesn't progress, it loops. Civilization doesn't evolve, it replays its own sins in infinite variations. In that sense, the serial killer case becomes a metaphor for existence itself. Patterns repeating, evil resurfacing, nothing ever truly dying. Humanity, in Rust's view, is a tape on loop, every generation convincing itself that it's different, that it's improving, when in truth, it's just circling the same abyss. This cyclical structure mirrors the show's timeline, the way 1995 and 2012 reflect one another, the way Rust and Marty's lives repeat patterns they swore to escape. Time doesn't heal, it reveals. Nick Pizzolatto writes scenes where the conversational texture, pauses, misdirections, offhand jokes, function like forensic tools. Watch how small, seemingly trivial answers make larger patterns visible. A childhood rhyme, a town name, a local gossip item. The show trusts dialogue to reveal both plot and philosophy. Rust's monologues, while philosophical, are also investigative. They frame the case within a cosmology of meaninglessness, which reframes every crime as symptom, not anomaly. As the detectives trace links to churches, old family estates, and abandoned psychiatric wards, the show shifts tone. It becomes almost archaeological. The writing turns every location into a depository of meaning. Rather than chasing a single forensic trail, Rust and Marty dig through cultural layers. Throughout the series, suspects and leads are planted that later look like red herrings, but they aren't wasted. Each dead end forces the detectives and the audience to reassess assumptions about morality, culpability, and the social ecosystem that allowed evil to flourish. In the hands of lesser writers, red herrings create frustration. Here, they create texture. Every wrong turn illuminates how the system occludes the truth through cover-ups. The beauty of True Detective's writing is that it refuses to romanticize good and evil as opposites. They're intertwined, reflections in the same mirror. Rust and Marty themselves embody that duality. Marty is the illusion of good. He believes in family, justice, and duty, yet he lies, cheats, and explodes in violence. He lives within society's moral architecture, but constantly violates it. Rust, meanwhile, is the illusion of evil. He's cold, detached, morally ambiguous, yet he's the one who sees the truth, who refuses to lie, and who genuinely seeks justice. In this inversion, True Detective suggests that good and evil are social performances, not cosmic truths. They are costumes human beings wear to make sense of chaos. Rust doesn't believe in divine justice. He doesn't think evil is an external force. He thinks it's woven into the fabric of human consciousness. The killer's rituals, the cult's depravity, the corruption within the state, these aren't anomalies, they're expressions of what humanity is when stripped of pretense. In episode 4, True Detective proves it isn't just storytelling, it's also cinematic mastery. The famed long take in this episode isn't only a technical celebration, it's an authenticity gambit. It drops us in the middle of an undercover operation that goes sideways. We feel the claustrophobia, the improvisation, the men in the moment. In terms of the case, it's the first time the investigation's physical risk becomes unavoidable. The sequences in this episode prove that the case isn't all about abstractions and symbols, it's also real and has consequences. The writing, direction, and acting all converge to make the investigation feel lived in and dangerous. Then, we get to episode 5, which delivers one of the show's most unforgettable moments, the confrontation with Reggie Ledoux. After weeks of meticulous investigation, Rust and Marty finally trace Ledoux to his hidden compound, and the tension is electric. The episode builds patiently, layering suspense through long, quiet shots, offhand dialogue, and Rust's obsessive attention to patterns. Every second feels like the calm before a storm. When the raid begins, the show's mastery of pacing and direction is undeniable. The action is sudden, brutal, and chaotic, yet every beat is perfectly clear. Rust and Marty navigate Ledoux' compound with precision, guns drawn, every step measured against the unpredictable danger ahead. The cinematography captures the violence with raw immediacy. Low angles, tight framing, and quick cuts immerse the viewer in the danger without sacrificing clarity. What makes the sequence extraordinary isn't just the action, it's what it represents narratively and philosophically. This confrontation is the first time the detectives face physical evil that is immediate, human, and grotesque. Ledoux embodies the depravity they have been tracing, but the scene also underscores a central theme of the series. Evil is larger than any one man. The raid is harrowing, but it's only a glimpse of the network, the rituals, and the corruption that sustain it. And when the dust settles, there's a grim satisfaction. Justice has been served, yet the show immediately reminds us this is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. In 2012, Rust and Marty are drawn back into the case, years after the original investigation. What begins as routine interviews with the police exposes the cracks in their memories, their regrets, and the changes time has wrought in both men. This framing device is genius. It turns the procedural story into an exploration of memory itself. Nothing is straightforward. Every recollection is filtered through decades of trauma, compromise, and denial. Rust starts to revisit the patterns, the symbols, the small overlooked details, while Marty struggles against his own selective recollections and the burden of guilt. These moments also deepen the audience's understanding of the investigation. Clues that seemed inconsequential in '95 are reframed through hindsight, turning memory itself into evidence. It highlights one of the show's core philosophies. Truth is messy, subjective, and often obscured by time, but pursuit of it is necessary. This return to the case marks a turning point in the series. It reawakens the tension, rekindles obsession, and sets the stage for both the physical confrontations and the philosophical reckonings to come. It's the moment where past and present collide, and the story's real weight begins to fully assert itself. When the investigation gradually starts pointing towards Errol Childress, the reveal doesn't arrive as a single lightning bolt. It's the meeting of threads, local folklore, physical evidence, and Rust's pattern work. In most detective stories, evil is simple. It has a face, a name, and a motive. But in True Detective, evil isn't just one person. It's a system. It's an inheritance. It's a sickness woven into the fabric of human civilization. When we finally meet Childress, the so-called Yellow King, he's grotesque, deformed, a product of inbreeding and decay. But the brilliance in the writing is that Childress isn't the evil, he's merely its residue. He's the symptom of something much older and much more powerful. The true evil is the invisible network behind him, the rich, powerful families, the politicians, the church leaders, all those who use their positions to protect the ritual, to bury victims and to rewrite the truth. The Tuttle family, tied to the state and the church, represents how depravity hides behind respectability. That's what makes it so terrifying. Evil doesn't wear a mask, it wears a suit. It prays on Sunday, it funds schools, it shakes hands with governors. Rust and Marty's discovery of the Tuttle connection redefines the whole case. What began as a grotesque murder mystery becomes a confrontation with the reality that evil isn't confined to the swamps, it's institutional, it's protected and structural. That moment when they realize how high it goes, how many people knew and did nothing, that's the real horror, because it mirrors real life. The show's brilliance lies in its reflection of how society actually works. The most monstrous crimes aren't committed by madmen in basements, but by systems that look the other way. In real life, the pattern repeats. Corruption hidden by wealth, predators shielded by power, truth buried by influence. True Detective exposes that this is how evil truly survives, not through chaos, but through order. Evil persists because the world needs it to. It keeps the machinery running. Rust sees that clearly. He's not surprised, he's seen it before. How institutions protect predators, how faith is used as a smokescreen, and how power perpetuates its own rot. That's why his pessimism feels justified. He's not just cynical for the sake of being cynical, he's observant. When Rust and Marty finally track Childress down, it's not really a victory over evil. It's symbolic. one light flickering in a darkness that still stretches far beyond them. The men who truly enable this horror, the governors, the bishops, the businessmen, remain untouched. They continue to live and to prosper. That's why True Detective feels so real. It doesn't promise closure or justice. It suggests that evil is bigger than justice, bigger than law, because it's embedded in the very structures that define civilization. Throughout the series, Rust's pessimism clashes with the world's need for hope. Marty calls him a downer, a buzzkill, but what Rust represents isn't negativity, it's clarity. He strips away illusion, and that makes people uncomfortable. Optimism in True Detective is portrayed not as joy, but as denial. Society's optimism, the belief in progress, faith, family, is built on selective blindness. Pessimism, meanwhile, is not cruelty, it's the courage to look at the full picture. The show constantly oscillates between these poles. Every moment of warmth, a family scene, a drink shared, a joke cracked, exists on borrowed time. The writing never lets optimism breathe too freely. It's always shadowed by decay. But that tension between darkness and light is the essence of the human condition, and that's where Rust's evolution becomes so powerful. By the end of the investigation, Rust is no longer the man he was in 1995. He's aged into bitterness, self-destruction, and alcohol. He's become a ghost haunting his own philosophy. But when he stares into the face of absolute evil, when he looks into the void that has defined his entire worldview, something cracks. In the final episode, after surviving near death, Rust recounts what he felt in the darkness, a vision of his daughter, of love, of something beyond the material world. It's not religion, it's revelation. For a man who has built his identity on negation, this is a seismic shift. In the end, when he looks at the dark sky and sees the small stars, he says, "Once there was only dark. You ask me, the light's winning." This is not sentimentality, it's existential rebellion. He hasn't abandoned his pessimism, he's transcended it. He's realized that even in a meaningless universe, moments of love and goodness exist, and that's enough. Rust's arc mirrors the philosophical journey from nihilism to absurdism, from despair to defiant acceptance, echoing Albert Camus' idea that even in an indifferent cosmos, we can choose meaning. The world remains cruel and senseless, but the choice to act decently, to seek light, becomes sacred precisely because it's irrational. That's Rust's final evolution, from philosopher of nothingness to believer in something faint, fragile, but real. When you step back from True Detective Season 1, what becomes clear is just how precisely constructed it is. 8 episodes, no filler, no wasted dialogue, no narrative fat. Every shot and every line, every moment of silence, they all serve a purpose. It's rare to find a show where you can say that every scene matters, but here it does. Every conversation, no matter how small, builds something, whether it's character, the philosophy, or the atmosphere. The show respects your intelligence. It assumes you're paying attention. It assumes you can feel the tension and the pauses, the meaning behind what isn't said. It's not built like television, it's built like cinema. It's directed like a single, unified film, one 8-hour movie divided into chapters. There's a consistency of vision that most TV shows simply don't have. One director, one writer, one cohesive voice. That's why it flows with such confidence. The pacing, the tone, the visuals, all of it moves like a carefully orchestrated symphony. And that's why the first season of True Detective feels timeless. It doesn't rely on constant twists or shock value. Its power comes from how complete it is. From the first frame to the last, there isn't a moment that feels uncertain or compromised. It's storytelling at its purest, ambitious, intelligent, and emotionally devastating. The show starts as a detective mystery and ends as an existential meditation. It begins in darkness and closes with the faintest glimmer of light. That balance between despair and hope, between horror and beauty, is what makes it so profound. And what truly elevates the show are the performances. It's rare to see Oscar-caliber actors, one of them an actual Academy Award winner in Matthew McConaughey, devote themselves so completely to television. Back in 2014, that was almost unheard of, and yet the result is exactly what you'd expect when film-level talent meets visionary storytelling. McConaughey doesn't just play Rust Cohle, he inhabits him. Every line delivery, gesture, and silence feels lived in. You believe this man has stared into the abyss and come back changed. It's the kind of performance that transcends acting. Woody Harrelson too. delivers a masterclass in controlled complexity. Marty could have been a cliché, the cheating, hypocritical cop, but Harrelson fills him with contradiction and fragility. You feel his guilt, his denial, his quiet fear of becoming the man Rust already is. Together, they create one of the greatest acting duos television has ever seen. And that's part of what makes True Detective feel more like cinema than TV. It's a fusion of film-level talent and literary storytelling. Every performance is grounded, every emotion is earned, and every moment is deliberate. There's no other season of television that feels quite like it. And when it's over, you feel changed. You've gone somewhere, through the mud, through the lies, through the void, and come out on the other side seeing the world just a little different. 8 episodes, 1 story. No second chances, no reboots, no filler. Just a complete vision. Haunting, philosophical, brutal, and beautiful. It's not just one of the greatest seasons of television ever made, it might be the closest thing we've ever had to perfect storytelling on screen. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps the channel grow. I've got plenty more deep dives and video essays coming soon, so stick around if you love stories that go beyond the surface. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.